Atlantic City, and it is full on snow, as you can see. But I'm super jacked, like stupid jacked, to be with my boy. The coach is in the house. He'll be so he came in tonight. We'll have some dinner tonight. We'll talk about some good stuff, and then tomorrow he gets to see me speak, which hasn't seen me speak in
Never live.
So I think I'm actually live on not even the Nudelberg huddle. I think it's
just live on Facebook.
Live on Facebook, but wherever we are, we're doing it. So welcome. And what we decided today was we picked 3 topics that we want to talk about. You know, why don't you tell them where you are, what you're doing, how you're doing, all that kind of stuff.
So right now I'm the special teams coordinator and recruiting coordinator at Lafayette College, which is in Easton, Pennsylvania, which is right in between New York City and Philadelphia, which is a cool little spot. It's a FCS program, football championship series. They're a Patriot League school, so they're really high academics. The difference between them and the Ivy Leagues is that they offer athletic scholarships, where the Ivy League just offer financial aid. So that's kind of the long and the short of it.
So the 3 topics. So he deals with really smart kids, which is kind of cool. We're going to pick 3 topics. Here's the 3 topics. Attacking routine. Those of us, me included, who have built a process and built something we do every day, you got to attack it. You can't just go at it lame. And so I wanted to ask him, his opinion on attacking routine. Number 2 is finding new ways to motivate yourself, because no matter what you do in life, if you're a housewife, you're going to be dealing with, how do I get motivated? So, and then the third thing is sustaining success, meaning you achieve it, and then what happens? You get halfway up the mountain, you plant your flag, or do you look to get up the top of the mountain? Because getting from the middle to the top, you got to bring more, you got to do more, you got to find more. So without further ado, welcome to Facebook Live, and let's talk about attacking routine. You guys practice just about every day. You work about 60 hours.
Well, the routine is the exact same every week, especially during the season. Every Sunday is the same, every Monday is the same, every Tuesday is the same. So for us, whether you're in college, if you're in the FCS, you're done in 11 weeks unless you make the playoffs. If you're FBS, you got 12 weeks, and then if you make the conference championship and the playoff and all that, and then if you're in the NFL, you've got 16 weeks of the regular season. It's the same routine every single week. So Monday's like the exact same, right? So by the time you get midway through the season in the NFL at 8 games, you've been doing something for 2 months the same way every single day of the week. It's hard to, when the season starts, you're attacking it with great enthusiasm, great energy. You're ready to go. You want to win games. All of a sudden at 4-4 in week 8, how do you find that same energy
Human
to
nature
attack it?
Pulls you away. Yeah, I get that. So
you have to be disciplined enough to bring yourself back mentally. And I think the part of it is you can't ride the highs and the lows. You can't spend 48 hours celebrating the victory on Sunday night over whoever it was.
Right.
And you can't spend 48 hours wallowing in the loss on Sunday night or whatever it was. So it's really, you have to try to manage your emotions and enjoy it when it happens, right? And
which is fair.
I think most NFL or most coaches in general say it's a 24-hour rule. You got 24 hours to enjoy the win or mourn the loss, and then you got to move on to the next.
So there's something I've never heard before. I never heard the 24-hour rule. But if we take that and apply it to business or in sales, sort of the same mentality,
100%.
I mean, if you get caught up in your success, those are the ones who fall by the wayside, because you got to get right back in the routine. You got to get right back to what got you there. And I think a lot of salespeople, a lot of business people have a really hard time with that, because.
And I think there's another aspect to it that says you have to go in knowing that you're not going to make every shot. You're not going to make every sale. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to make every third down. It's never going to be perfect. So if you go in with the mentality of, I know it's not going to be perfect, but no matter what, I'm going to come back and attack it over and over and over to get the most excellent result that I can find, because perfection is not real.
It would be impossible.
There is no perfection.
And in the business I'm in, I'm going to fail many more times than I'm going to be successful.
If you're a baseball player, you
Right.
get to hit 36% of the time, and you're a winner.
So,
right?
right,
You bat
so,
360. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're having a great season." Right? No, you hit
The
the
Hall
ball.
of Fame.
You hit the ball 36% of the time.
Right.
So I think you
Listen,
have to.
I would settle for 36% of my deals.
So you have to find a way to manage your expectations to understand that there are going to be setbacks, there are going to be negative things, and how do I swallow that? How do I digest it? How do I learn from it? And then how do I continue to go attack the process with the same enthusiasm and the same energy all the time? Because that's really the difference, is the guys who don't fall off. The guys who are attacking the process at week 10 are the ones who are going to accelerate at the end of the season, as opposed to the guys that are just showing up to the process on week 10 that are, all right, now they're going to lose a game here and there. And that game that gets you into the wild card spot, or that game that wins you the SEC championship to get into the playoff, that's the difference, right? I mean, the difference of 7 points in the SEC championship.
Right, 7
Pick
points. And look at what happened. Look at the dichotomy of what 7 points did. One's not going to the playoffs. And one.
And I heard that, I think it was Colin Cowherd that said this. Everybody's making a big deal about Georgia not being in, which I agree. I think Georgia's one of the 4 best football teams in the country, and they should be in the playoffs.
I think everybody talks and agreed that they were one of the 4 best.
But the reality of the situation is they had 1 loss going into it. They were in control of their destiny. Beat Bama, and you're in, and you did it.
Right.
So you didn't, so you're out.
And that's a real law of fact. That sucks. That hurts. That kind of motivation is what drives teams the next year.
Right.
That, nobody wants to live with that pain. But if you look at most championship teams are ones that have lost in the past or had some kind of adversity or some defeat. And then they come back to, look, Michael Jordan was great, but he lost years in a row to Detroit until they got better. And
to me, there are success stories that are overnight success, that it happens, you're there. But look at Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts took a team to an undefeated season, takes them to the national championship, loses his starting job. Everybody's telling him he should transfer, he should do this, he should do that, he should get out of there, it's not right for him. All he did was keep his nose to the grindstone, prepare right there, be the right kind of guy, do the right kind of things. And then an opportunity showed itself in the SEC championship. He steps in, he wins the game. And
so he was that guy, and he is certainly a role model. I've worked with Nick Saban. I never saw him, even remotely tear up, and it looked like he did, because what a phenomenal story for that guy. But what happens to the thousands of other guys that are faced with that same situation that don't get the payoff? That's the hard part.
Don't get the payoff right now.
Don't get the payoff right then.
Whose timeline is it?
Right, whose timeline?
Right? It's that classic image of that person that's digging the hole.
That's a good comeback.
And is right there an inch away, and they're walking away from it, and the other person is going. Like, if it's what you want, if it's your dream, if that's your goal,
solely then, in your mind,
then why are you stopping?
Right.
Who's stopping you but yourself?
That's pretty cool.
So just because you don't get paid off when you think you should get paid off, right? And look, I have to deal with it all the time. I can speak from experience. I have been up. I thought that I was setting myself up for a career that was going to just propel on this plane constantly. I was at 27 years old, special teams coordinator at the University of Cincinnati, and then lots of setbacks in the process to get back to where you need to be. And you know what? At any one of those moments, I could have chosen to just pack it up and say, "Oh, you know what? Coaching isn't for me." I got told that it wasn't for me, and it's not. But I haven't. I've continued to find new jobs and new ways, and I know what I want to do. I don't care how long it takes me. I don't care if it's 65 before I get my first head coaching job. I want to be a head coach.
It's amazing to me how, just listening to you, how it parallels most of the people I work with and most of the people I coach. When you say whose timeline, you're right, man. If you really love what you do, which you do, you bring that passion to it. No matter where you're doing, the opportunity to do that and the ability to say, wow, I get up every day and do what I love, no matter where you do it, is still a gift.
Well, so to bring it back to the point of attacking routine, right, that to me is, I've worked at all different levels of college football. The elite of the elite at Florida State and Florida, the mid-majors between Cincinnati and Nevada, and now very small in FCS Patriot League, where we have 2,500 students on campus, right? all the jobs are the same. The special teams coordinator, no matter where I am, doesn't matter whether we play in front of 85,000 people, 100,000 people, or 500 people. It's the same job. It's the same game. So I have to attack it with the same mentality of we're chasing perfection. We want to be great. It doesn't matter what kind of players we have, whether we have the top 100 recruits in the country or we're looking for academic guys that are good football players. It's the same job, and I have to attack it with the same energy and give it the same input in order to try to get the same output.
So the reality is you do, and obviously I'm super proud of you for doing it, but you don't have to. There are a lot of people who don't, and that's where they suffer. So we'll switch gears, and the second question that we were going to talk about is finding new motivation. So for those that do hit a rut, which, listen, I don't care who you are, you're going to hit a rut. I've hit a rut. The best of the best have hit a rut. You know, you hit a place where it's not working. You don't feel it. Your mind is completely fucking with you. What do you do?
Well, first of all, you need either one person, or you need two people, or you need a counsel. You need to have a somewhere
Love that
you can talk to, that they can check you, that they know how to check you. That because look, especially if
who's that for you?
I have a few, but there are people in my inner circle, right? The inner circle. There are people in my inner circle that I'm okay with saying I can't find it. I can't find the right message for this week. I really can't seem to get myself focused on the right things mentally. I'm really wallowing, whatever it is, all the things that I know I shouldn't be doing, and I know how to get myself. I know all the coaching points and all the words, and I could tell you what I should be doing. I just can't seem to get myself to do it. You have to rely on people's help to help you get there. Now, the other part of that is to avoid that, I think, is finding outside sources, whether it's new reading, whether it's new podcasts, whether it's a show, whatever it is.
Are you plugging my podcast?
Maybe, whatever. I think for everybody, and for me, it's not necessarily motivational. To me,
I agree. That's smart.
I find a lot of, I'll listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he'll talk about some hunting excursion that he's on. But to me, it just creates a new input of positivity or some kind of messaging that helps shift me a little bit, or makes me think about something differently, or helps me find a point that I can help apply to something else. So I think that's kind of.
So I think you're right. If you control the input and if you control the input, it certainly takes care of the output. No matter what. A lot of times I get up in front of a group of people and I'll say to them, "Hey, do you own a library?" And everybody looks at me like I'm crazy, and I go. And then they'll go, "Well, what are you talking about?" I go, "Well, YouTube's the biggest library ever, and you own it. You have free access to unbelievable content every minute of every day. So whether it's affirmations or whether it's a specific topic, you can just, just Google it, which is a verb. I'm going to Google it, bam, put it in there, and you're going to get real-time content." I'm a huge fan of, I wake up in the morning, and the first things I do is put that good shit in so that it reformats no matter what's going on in my life, that plus gratitude. And, so are there specific practices for motivation? Is there a specific go-to for you that says, or is it just random and you just say, I know how do you catch yourself is really the question.
I'm intrinsically motivated.
Let me put it to you this way. So you lose a game. It's hard. No matter how you lose. There is an intrinsic part of that sucks, How do you,
So there's two things. Number one, I rely on somebody to help me, right? There's a specific person that I will call, right, and I will say, hey, this is it. We'll talk about it, whatever. And then I change my focus to the next opponent. I don't have time. How are we going to win this next week? So I just, okay, this is what it is. This is what it was. And then I start watching tape on the next opponent and start putting together their tendencies and figuring out who they are. And now I'm starting to get in that mode of, okay, this is what we're going to see this week. This is what we're getting, how we're going to attack it. And that changes me and it puts me back into the focus of, okay, And the other thing is identifying the issues from the game on Saturday,
right,
and figuring out how I'm going to fix them. Because you can't just ignore them. You can't just identify the
they're
problem.
Real. They're real.
And you can't just identify and say that's the problem and then walk away from it because it's still the problem. You have to find a way to fix the problem. And for us, that's really difficult because, like, if it's a problem of a kid not doing a specific thing the right way, right, there's 3 reasons that could be the case. He either doesn't know how to do it,
which is terrible,
right? Well, but so
because that's self-inflicted.
Well, is it, or did I not teach him properly?
Okay.
Right. As a coach, you have to take responsibility for what you put on film. So there's this 2-way street of a coach and player where it's like, well, I'm responsible for teaching you what to do and how to do it, but it's your responsibility to take ownership of it and to do it that way. So you have to identify: have I taught him? Have I given him all the tools in order to do it? Yes or no? Right? Because then it becomes, well, if I have given him all the tools, why isn't he doing it? Can he do it? Am I asking him to do something that he physically can't do? Or is he just choosing not to do it? Right? So do I need to coach him better and prepare him to get him to do it better? Right. Or do I need to replace him with somebody who maybe can do it better than him? So you have to identify all of those issues on a Sunday and then create a plan to go in and fix it on Monday through Thursday before you play on Saturday.
So I love talking to you because the parallels to what I do and what I've done my whole life are amazing. So it really is a day-to-day, week-to-week battle. And I think that's what life is. Life is a day-to-day. You're going to get things thrown at you that you don't expect, and how you deal with them and how you keep yourself. I love the word that you said about focus. I'm going to change my focus. And, focus is so key because most people I know focus on the negative. They focus on that bad when you have the power to change your mindset and say, I'm going to focus on the good, but it's hard.
Well, you mean your eyeballs look at one thing, right? You focus on one thing and then you have a peripheral and you notice other things. If you're focused on the negative, right, you see the negative, and I mean, how much do you really notice your peripheral, right? Like you just kind of catch it. Right. So everything else that's happening outside of that negative is hard to see, So it's when you change your focus to the positive or your plan of how to fix the negative, right now you're focused on that, and then the things that are happening in the peripheral don't really matter. Hopefully that's the negative.
Love it. So we'll switch to our third question. Our third question is, so you've achieved success, and then once you've achieved it, how do you sustain it? And we were talking, just before we did this live with Michelle, and Michelle brought up, hey, watching the Eagles. The Eagles are, just a shadow of the team that they were last year. You reach the pinnacle, then what? How do you sustain it? And then you look at a guy like Nick Saban who just continually does it. So you have some thoughts on that as well.
I think it's like a double-edged sword almost, because I think it's true. Like, you have to stay true to your process, right? Like, whatever your process is, you have to stay true to that. But like in the world of where you're creating change, if you take over an organization and the organization's struggling, they're not hitting their mark, right? You have to create motivation. You have to be a certain kind of person to get those people to make the movement to create the change.
And Pat Riley was a master at that.
So, but once you create the change and you've got them to that point, you can't just keep trying to create the change, right? Like, now you have to change.
That's how you burn out.
As the leader, you have to then change and understand, okay, I've got the organization where I want it to be. How do I now change my leadership skills to nourish that and to keep that functioning at a high level? Because,
well, how do you create a baseline then? Because if you're charging and there's growth and there's new energy and new successes and all, and then it has to plateau, though, doesn't it?
Right, that's what I mean. Right, so the plateau would be, for me, would be a national championship, right?
Okay, right.
Like, that's the plateau. You've climbed, you've created the winning, right? And boom, you hit the mountaintop.
Right.
And so where do you go? How do you stay? Because you can't stay the same. If you stay as good as you were when you won the national championship, you're going to lose it next year. It's not going to be good enough for the next year. So how do you continue to create the growth and change to get better, to keep winning? And that's really the hard part. So that's where you have to identify, okay, we've gotten to this point. What do we need to do now to nourish this team and to keep it growing in the right direction? And to me, that's you have to find your leaders within the organization. Then it becomes about,
because it can't just be your voice.
Well, no,
that's really good.
Now it's about giving ownership back to the people who are doing it. So if you're the sales manager and your team is really trying to make a number, right, and you guys hit the number, well, now you got to give them ownership. Look, you guys did this, not me, right? I told you what we needed to do. I set the standard. I moved us here, but you're the ones who did the work and did it. Now it becomes about you holding everybody else accountable to our standard that we've created, and you create this mutual ownership of what you're doing, and that's how you continue. Wow. And that's what I think that's what Nick Saban does a great job of. When you watch training days and the things that give you inside access to his program, when there's an issue, you'll see guys stand up and say, hey, why is anybody else talking? Right. That's the only man that needs to be talking. So you have the troops preaching the same message as the general, and now you create the environment that you just don't allow people to not function at the standard that you've created.
I'm so enamored with how you articulate what happens on the football field, and then relate it to what happens in the real world for the rest of us. The parallels are amazing, don't you?
Yeah. So Brian Polian, who I worked for at the University of Nevada, part of our recruiting presentations, he would always say, "I love being a football coach because I get to teach life through sport." And I always thought that always rung so true to me, because that's what we do. We teach people how to deal with adversity, how to deal with success, how to understand competition, how to walk the line of doing the right thing, but also being really competitive and trying to challenge yourself all the time, being a good teammate. What does being a good teammate mean? And you teach all of these things, and all of those are direct correlations to being a successful father, a successful entrepreneur, whatever it is that you want to do with your life. All of those disciplines apply directly to that. So it's, that's the fun part about being a football coach, is you get to teach life through sport.
And it's a game that you love, obviously. Yeah. Right? So this has been, for me, I get to spend the rest of the night with him. So it's unbelievable. The dialogue we'll have, what we talk about, how we talk about it. I'm a super proud dad. Hopefully you enjoyed, a look inside of, what a coach's perspective is on how they do what they do, and, how they drive. If there's anybody that has a question that's listening or that has tuned in, shoot it to us right now. I'm happy to answer that, and he's happy to answer it. But I will leave you with this thought. I was able to catch the funeral today of George number 41, and George number 43 did his sermon, or his speech, which was just incredible, And so how great is it that the last words that he said, that 41 said to 43, was, "I love you," and I'm going to steal that, because I love you, kid. So proud of him. And thanks for joining us. And ask questions, shoot me, follow him. His career is on the rise. He's worked for some of the greatest. He's worked for a couple of Saban disciples, but he's worked for some great men who are teaching, the youth of our country. And so I'm super proud, super thrilled that I could share it through these, through Facebook Live. And thanks for spending the time with us. Stay on the ball.